Alright, we are on to the right hand side of the desk. I hope you've been able to have a look around the rest of the extravaganza and see what other wonderful offerings are available today. And so we'll be moving on to this next side of the desk. So again, we are lining it up to make sure that we adhere the right width and make sure that matches up with the height of the back. And then once we have the correct piece in the right position, we'll add some glue to the edge, and then we'll bring it right down on the edge of that back piece and line it up. And then we will sit it up, and hopefully everything will adhere nicely. And when you're doing this, don't be afraid to take your time. Use a steady hand, and remember that your tacky glue isn't going to set straight away, so you do have time to maneuver or manipulate your piece if you need to. Don't rush it, because you want it to line up nicely. If it doesn't line up nicely, it might not fit with the rest of the pieces. So I just want you to take your time and make sure that everything is sitting as it should be. And then when you're comfortable too, you can let it go, and the tacky glue will be tacky enough to hold it in place, so it will stand up on its own. But to make sure that it stays parallel and where you want it to, you might want to flip that up so that it's sitting on the 3 edges, and that will be a bit more sturdy for you. Now at the point when you flip it up, you can use the lines on your cutting mat to make sure that everything is sitting at your 90-degree angle, and make sure that everything lines up with those lines on the mat and it's nice and square, so that later when you go to adhere the rest, everything will be sitting where it should be. So at this point I have had my larger pieces and my tiered pieces sitting under a book to try and keep them nice and flat while they were drying. So I've just taken them out now, and I am going to go through the task of connecting everything. So you'll see there's my framed part for the top, and there are my bottom tiered pieces for that top layer. So I'm going to turn that over now, and I'm going to use an eraser to rub out the markings because we don't need them anymore, and I don't want it to show, because mine are right in the bottom in the corner, and I don't want it to show when you flip up the desk and have a look underneath. So I'm going to rub out those markings now so that they don't show at all. And then once I've done that, I will be gluing the tiered piece onto the back of that top layer. So again, I'll dry trial it first and make sure everything looks good and I'm happy, and then I'll add my adhesive. And because this piece is bigger, we definitely want to use our roller to spread the adhesive. And then of course a toothpick to make sure there's no excess. And the other thing is we're lining it all up by eye, so it is a really good idea to dry trial first. Make sure you know exactly where that piece is going to go before you start gluing. And of course now we are gluing to the largest side on the tiered piece, and that should have the writing on it. So again, a nice even layer of adhesive there, and then you're going to flip that one over and it's going to go on the flat side of the top piece. Square it up by eye. Don't be afraid to maneuver it around and push it if you need to. And then again, you'll be sticking this under a book with the tiered pieces facing down so that you can control warping in the best way possible. The tiers end up looking so good when they're done. I'm really pleased with how this has turned out. Okay, so we are on to our base pieces, and we are going to add on the sheets of board here to the bottom, which when together will look like a big solid piece of wood at the bottom of the desk on each platform, if you like. So to do this, we have pieces for the left and pieces for the right. I do believe they're all the same measurement. Now, the construction is as follows. The long pieces go, the edges of those are glued and they get stuck to the top edge of, or the top long edge of the base. So they get stuck to either side, and then the shorter pieces which go onto the ends, they go in between the two longer back side pieces, and they are also adhered to the top of the base piece, but on the end and the front. So these are measured out perfectly so that they will all fit together, and I'm going to show you how to do that now. And the other thing I want you to remember is that the tiered pieces are going to sit underneath. So these are all going to be adhered to the largest piece and to the back side of that. So it should be the piece that has the writing on it. So at the moment I am dry trialing them, and I'm straightening out the pieces because they did have a little bit of warping, and now we're going to go ahead and glue. So what I like to do is I add the glue to the smallest piece, and then I lay that down on the mat, and I bring the larger piece towards the smaller piece, and I join the two together. My reasoning for doing this is because I am holding the smaller piece flush with the mat, and I have more control when I hold the bigger piece. So by pinning the smaller piece down and then pushing the larger piece in towards the smaller piece, this allows me to make sure everything's flush with the mat, so that gives me a really nice 90-degree angle, but also, as I said earlier, it gives me more control, so that you can see here I'm using my nails to push that smaller piece inward, and I'm using pressure on my right hand there to push the larger piece in. And you can see also tacky glue is so wonderful that it holds straight away, so I can move that piece around, and it is a good idea to push it along, and that way it won't get stuck to your mat and fall apart. So do move it along, and then when you're comfortable to, you can flip that up, and that edge piece will sit straight up and down, no problems. Okay, and we're going to do the exact same thing on this side, except this time I'm going to glue the edge, but I'm going to bring that piece down onto the edge of the largest piece, and then I'm going to flip it up. I think I was just trying different techniques here to see what way worked best for 112, because I think, as I mentioned earlier, the material is heavier, so some things that you could do in 124 scale you can't really do in 112 scale because of the weight factor and the way that the glue holds. So in 124 it's very easy to flip things around, maneuver things and glue quickly without really any drying time because you use so little. But in 112 scale it is very different, so just try different things and see what works for you. And now I have that shorter piece ready to glue into the back. So as I said, it will sit on the top side of the bottom piece and it will sit in between those two side pieces. So you can see here the tacky glue has enough maneuverability to be able to separate those two side pieces slightly to let this back piece in. So I'm just applying a light amount of glue to 3 of the edges of that back piece. It doesn't matter which 3, it's all the same. And then once I've done that, I will separate the 2 side pieces just a little bit, enough to allow me to get that back piece in, and then I'll squeeze them all in together and make it nice and flush, and it'll be really neat and tidy once I'm done. And you can see here I flip the piece up, and again, like I said earlier, that's to keep it flush with the mat. And now I can really push it into that back piece, and I can really apply the pressure with the 2 side pieces to make them connect to the edges of this piece. So that just helps me to get some traction to keep everything nice and square. And doing the exact same process with the front portion now, or actually it might be the back portion, I'm not sure. But the other side, we're doing the exact same thing, so separating the side pieces slightly and inserting the end piece, and then we will flip it up, and like I said, we'll gain a bit of traction there, so pushing that end piece in, pushing the sides into those edges, and having everything nice and flush with the mat. And the end result is a very square, very tidy looking box, which when we turn that upside down, that's a tiered platform for our desk to sit on. And you can also use this technique when you're building drawers. It's the same principle because they are square. So this is how I usually get my drawers looking nice and square and tidy, by gluing them together in this way. And you can do the same. So now that you've mastered one side, I'd like you to go ahead and use that very same process for the next side. Now I'm going to take a little break here, so I'm going to leave you to continue to prepare the bottom of this platform on your own, and then when I come back we will continue on preparing the rest of the desk. Hope you're enjoying.